First Contact with Joshua Pope.
Hello, Earthlings, and welcome back to First Contact Radio. How are you today? It is Wednesday, the 15th of November, 2017. That's on the Gregorian calendar, while on the Jewish calendar, it is the 26th day of Cheshvan, the year 5778. We're right here today. So you can look at the calendar, see where we are. When we look at our astrology for today to see what the energy is, our sun sign, our conscious mind, focus for the last 23 days has been in Scorpio. Scorpio is a water sign dealing with emotions. We're getting ready to move out of Scorpio in the next 7 days. How do I know that? I know that because this number goes up to 30 and then it moves to the next day. You have this nice little calendar here where you can move accordingly and find out when all of this movement takes place. And you could see here on the 22nd, next Wednesday, we're at 0 degrees of the next sign, which is Sagittarius. Our moon sign currently is in Libra, where it is just leaving, and as we could see tomorrow, it is into Scorpio. So over the course of the next day, it's going to make that movement. So we're going from Libra, an air sign, into Scorpio, a water sign. Basically, I like to think of it this way. I like to think of 2 layers. You got top layer here, you've got the conscious mind, and then underneath it you have a layer which is the unconscious mind. And the conscious mind, I think of like a big pie, okay? It's got all these 30 different degrees it's going to go around, and underneath it you have the subconscious mind, which is going along, and every 2.5 days it's changing the way in which this conscious mind is expressing itself. So for 30 days, Scorpio, the conscious mind is expressing itself, expressing the emotions of what's going on, expressing, allowing things that are buried deep to rise to the surface so we can deal with them, so we can go for these transformations. However, during the course of this, every couple days, there's a transition underneath. Right now, air is pushing these emotions, stimulated by air, by our need to want to have things balanced out in our life, balancing out our emotions. And as we move forward over the course of today, our underlying subconscious is going to go into Scorpio, which means that air sign is going to transition into emotions, which means emotions are going to be pushing the emotions. Emotions are going to be stimulating that activity. So the unconscious emotions and the upper emotions are going to be hitting each other. Okay, when they do, that's a lot of emotions. So as we move forward over the next couple of days, just be ready for an onslaught of emotions. The best way to deal with it, put the armor on, so you're protected from all of the emotions that go on, because they're just emotions. They're not real things. They're feelings that need to be dealt with, and sometimes they're feelings that have been buried very, very deep, which is why when we deal with them, they're so heavy, because we've ignored them, neglected them for such a long period of time, okay? So we're coming out of Libra, air. So we're at the last phases of that, finding a way to balance ourselves through our words and our actions as we get ready to go into that underlying feelings, underneath the overlying feelings of this last month. All right. All right. So let's move forward here, take a look at some stories. I want to get into some of what I think is the hypocrisy of what is taking place out there in the world today. First of all, what we have here is this story that says NBC News, Hillary Clinton covered up a pedophile ring at the State Department. This was a report that goes back to November 14, 2017. An ABC News report from 2013 claimed that Hillary Clinton, well, Secretary of State, shut down an investigation into an elite pedophile ring in State Department ranks in order to avoid scandal and protect the careers of high-ranking officials and an ambassador. Flashback to June 11, 2013, when NBC was reporting real news. The NBC investigation even provided internal State Department memos to back up claims of a massive Hillary Clinton elite pedophile ring cover-up. Watching the video below is a little strange. It is a stark contrast to the way the mainstream media reports news today. Matt Lauer and Chuck Todd actually like the way that actually sound like they are reporting the news. Major media outlet reporting today has become nothing more than weaponized propaganda and a partisan extension of the Democratic Party aimed at destroying Trump and the administration. This video, posted back in 2013, said I did some digging and it looks like they either didn't make an article for it on the NBC News site or they removed it since it doesn't follow their narrative now. Serious allegations concerning State Department, the NBC anchor announced before launching into the disturbing details that mainstream media would be unable to report on in 2017. According to internal State Department memos, the agency might have called off or intervened in investigations into alleged possible illegal, inappropriate behavior within its ranks, allegedly to protect jobs and avoid scandals. This concerns a time when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. There's an old saying in Washington that the cover-up is worse than the crime, but in this case, both parts of it are disturbing, Chuck Todd continued. Allegations of prostitution and pedophilia and allegations that those crimes were somehow covered up or not looked into. So the State Department this morning is having to respond to those claims, and those investigations involve misconduct by State Department officials, including an ambassador and security agents attached to the then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. The allegations that these investigations were whitewashed, quashed altogether, and that those orders came from high up. NBC has obtained documents relating to ongoing investigations into some of the disturbing allegations involving State Department personnel and at least one ambassador. A State Department memo says, quote, the ambassador routinely ditched the protective security detail in order to solicit sexual favors from both prostitutes and minor children. The memo also says top State Department official directed State Department investigators to cease the investigation into the ambassador's conduct. It's just one of what another document describes as several examples of undue influence from top State Department officials. Okay, so very fascinating. Something that is not surprising to us because we know that Hillary's been involved with illicit activities for some time. We know that she's married to Bill, who is a racist. Let's move over to this next story here. Exclusive: former Joe Biden Secret Service agent. We had to protect a woman from him. Weinstein level stuff. All right, what we got here is a bunch of pictures that are various pictures of Joe Biden. Joe Biden seemingly having sexual inappropriate touching looks like it's going on with many of these young women. You could see by the body language, there's not really too into it. This woman here laughing, but wonder what she's laughing at because that doesn't seem to be his. Anyway, a former Secret Service agent assigned to the Vice President Joe Biden claims that the service had to protect female agents from him. Speaking on the condition of anonymity, the agent asserted that we had to cancel the VP Christmas get-together at the Vice President's house because Biden would grope all of our wives and girlfriends' asses. The annual party was for agents and the Navy personnel who were tasked with protecting the Biden family. He would mess with every single woman or teen. It was horrible, the agent said. According to the source, a Secret Service agent once got suspended for a week in 2009 for shoving Biden after he cupped his girlfriend's breast while the couple were taking a photo with him. The situation got so heated, the source tells Big League, that others had to step in to prevent the agent from hitting the then vice president. He said that the men on duty frankly would stand in front of female reporters and Navy women that were present like a damn guardian. On some occasions, they would make up reasons to get the woman away from where he was. The agent said he was specifically concerned about women in the Navy. They weren't allowed to disobey him at all, but then we'd take them away under pretend auspices, the agent said. The official vice president's residence is the Queen Anne-style home at One Observatory Circle in Washington, D.C., which is located in the northeast grounds of the U.S. Naval Observatory. The property is maintained and cared for by the service branch. Best-selling author Ronald Kessler wrote about Biden's problem with female agents in his book, The First Family Detail. Agents say that whatever at the vice president has a habit of swimming in his pool nude. One source confirmed the statement. It was especially an issue at his Delaware house that would go on every weekend. He would only get naked when Jill was absent, he added. Biden has also long been criticized for his contact with women and girls in photos and videos, and was even referred to as creepy Uncle Joe Biden by the Washington Post. In a report from the Washington Examiner titled Joe Biden's Woman-Touching Habit, Byron York wrote that he has a tendency to particularly affectionate when women in business and social situations, like the 2013 Christmas party at which he embraced reporter Annie Parnes. And then here we have a picture here where he's got his arm around this woman. We continue to go down. Agent also worked under the Bush administration and added that Vice President Dick Cheney never grabbed any butts or breasts. We've reached out to Bowdoin Spike's spokeswoman for comment, but did not receive a response by the time of this publishing. We jump over to this article. Here we see, shock, $15 million in taxpayer money has been paid out to settle congressional sexual harassment lawsuits. As previously reported, Congress has a rampant sexual harassment problem. In fact, the problem is so bad that female lawmakers and aides keep a creep list of men who are notorious for lewd behavior. As if this couldn't get any worse, Representative Jackie Speer told MSNBC's Chuck Todd Tuesday the taxpayers have paid over $15 million to settle sexual harassment lawsuits against members of Congress. A new report by CNN exposes the D.C. swamp's very serious problem of powerful men preying on women. CNN spoke with over 50 current and former lawmakers, aides, and staff who have personally experienced sexual harassment on the Hill or know people who have. Women are subjected to sexual harassment by their male colleagues and avoid reporting it out of fear of career-ending retaliation. A female Senate staffer told CNN that she had an experience with a male lawmaker in an elevator that left her horrified. Multiple females told CNN that elevators in Capitol Hill are known places for male lawmakers to prey on women. One woman says she still gets anxiety about being in an elevator alone with a man. Jackie Speer testified in front of the House Administration Committee Tuesday that two members of Congress, that one Republican and one Democrat, engaged in sexual harassment. I think moving forward, we've got to take steps to make sure that there is transparency, that in fact the harasser is not going to have the settlement paid out of the U.S. Treasury and have all the taxpayers paying for it. It should be something that is paid for by the individual, Speer said. Chuck Todd asked if the public has the right to know who these members of Congress are being, that the taxpayers that have paid for the sexual harassment settlements. Well, I think you do have the right to know, but right now, under the system, you don't have the right to know. We do know there's about $15 million that has been paid out by the House on half of the harassers in the last 10 to 15 years, Speer said. How much more are the American people going to take from the D.C. swamp? Not only do they waste taxpayer money on bloated government bureaucracy, but they are also allowed to privately settle sexual harassment lawsuits with our money. So why the hell are hardworking Americans paying for the sins of these disgusting sexual abusers? Every single one of these congressmen should be named and publicly shamed. They should receive zero benefits or pensions and must be forced to pay the settlements out of their own pockets. Continuing on, let's look at this here because we're hearing all the stories about Roy Moore, who has been accused, but there is no court case going on against him, and there's no real evidence, just hearsay, and then a lawyer who is a ambulance chaser. But there is an actual case going on regarding Bob Menendez, and that is being ignored. ABC, NBC, CBS ignoring Bob Menendez corruption trial. The networks have given the prosecution of the Democratic senator from New Jersey just 2 minutes of airtime since September. The broadcast networks have given sexual abuse allegations against a Republican Senate candidate from Alabama wall-to-wall coverage, but can barely be bothered to mention the corruption trial of an incumbent Democrat, according to a new study. The Media Research Center, which tracks left-wing bias in news coverage, calculated that the evening and morning newscasts of ABC, CBS, and NBC continued for 104 minutes of coverage of the allegations against Alabama Senate hopeful Roy Moore since Thursday, when the Washington Post first printed accusations. By comparison, the bribery trial of Senator Bob Menendez, Democrat from New Jersey, has attracted just 2 minutes of coverage from the networks. That is not 2 minutes during the same period, but 2 minutes since September 6th, the day the trial started. NBC, according to the Media Research Center, has not covered the trial at all, and none of the networks have mentioned the trial since September 13th, more than 2 months ago. It would be nice if the media would give the Roy Moore treatment to all scoundrels in public life, says Rich Noyes, director of research at the watchdog organization. Moore so far has resisted growing calls to drop out of the race. On Monday, a woman who was not named in the Post story said at a televised news conference that when she was 16, Moore groped her after offering to give her a ride home from work. Meanwhile, in a federal courtroom in New Jersey, told the judge in the Menendez trial on Monday that they were deadlocked. The judge sent jurors home for the day with instructions to return on Tuesday. The contrasting coverage is stark and points to ideological bias, Noyes said. There is no way to conclude otherwise. If the news media were really interested in good government and running ethically, challenge people out of the Senate, then they would have been all over this. Noyes wrote in the report that the disparity in the coverage is more consequential than merely exposing bias. He argued that it affected the way the parties deal with the scandals facing their standard bearers. In fact, the near absence of media coverage makes it almost impossible to see public pressure forcing Democrats to dump Menendez, even if he's found guilty. On the other hand, network reporters are stoking demands for more depart from the scene without any kind of judicial verdict. Okay, and therein lies the problem in this last sentence. We've got a mob mentality who is wanting to push Roy Moore out. It hasn't gone through a legal process. Did he actually do this? Well, the accusers seem to be politically motivated. Then you've got the Gloria Alfred, the ambulance chaser that is there, Allred, excuse me. And, all the pieces are in place to let us know that they are not telling the truth. And then when you see what's going on with Menendez, who actually is on trial, who actually is going through a situation because of the similar type of crimes, or even worse, it's not even being covered. Why? Bias. Bias. So you can't believe everything that they're telling you because it's not accurate. Now here, in regards to Gloria Allred, this is an article breaking. Ex-Apprentice Summer Zervos paid $500,000 by Gloria Allred to accuse Trump. Deal went to others too. The Apprentice loser and Trump fake rape accuser Summer Zervos was bribed $500,000, that's $500,000, by Democratic fundraiser and lawyer Gloria Allred to make her accusations against Donald Trump, a deal that was shopped around to other ex-Apprentice contestants too, according to anonymous sources familiar with the matter. Got News source tells us that Zervos' sexual harassment accusation against Trump is a completely fabricated hoax. Zervos was paid $500,000 by Gloria Allred, which is being paid out slowly over time, according to the source. You won't hear this from the lying mainstream media. So there you go. So very important. So this woman, Gloria Allred, has been caught in the past paying people to lie, paying them as much as $500,000. And here she is representing a client who is presenting this yearbook. And then there's all these various problems with the yearbook, from the multicolored ink that was used to the name, which looks like it's Ray instead of Roy, to the title DA when he was actually a deputy district attorney, DDA. I mean, there's a whole number of things that are wrong with that. And now on top of all that, here we go. Roy Moore just got great news. Accusers' son just dropped a major bombshell. A man who is reportedly the stepson of Beverly Young Nelson has come forward to dispute the allegations she made about Judge Roy Moore sexually assaulting her. Here is this transcription. It says, I found out today that my stepmother is one of the ladies that is accusing Judge Moore of an act that supposedly happened when she was a teenager. My father's name is John Allen Nelson. The woman that committed this act is Beverly Young Nelson. It's hard for me to actually have this conversation, but it must be done. Mr. Moore, I support you. I believe the acts that she's claimed that you've done. I don't believe the acts that she's claimed you've done. I don't believe it. I've known the woman. She's married my father many, many years ago. I've known her for a while now, and I truly do not believe she's being honest about this. You're a good judge. You cared about the Ten Commandments. You tried like hell to stop the Ten Commandments from being taken out of the courtroom. I remember. Now I'm twisted. To you, Mr. Moore, your wife, I do apologize for whatever reason she's doing this. I am truly sorry. You're a good man, and I believe you're what Alabama needs to move forward. I stand behind you 100%. To my stepmother, whatever reason you chose to do this, I have a few questions. I'm not going to have it. I've tried to keep quiet on your name because I've seen your name flying around everywhere. And that's a lot of people that voted for him that are truly pissed off. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them one bit because I'm pissed off. because I'm a Moore supporter, but officially this is a statement that I've been meaning to make. I wanted to make, I just didn't know exactly how to word it since I didn't write it down and make it sound so cordial. All right, so there's more to this. I'm going to leave this to you so you can read this, but as you can see, now this isn't the first accuser's relative that came forward. One of the accusers, who we're told was 14, and there was a phone call made from the room. Well, the mother came forward and said there was no phone in her kid's room when the kid was 14. So really problematic issues that are being brought up here. All right, let's switch gears real quick. Wanted to bring this story because we continue to hear all about slavery. Slavery is a horrible thing. Slavery is a horrible thing, but it still exists in the world. Well, African American millionaire athletes are complaining that they are slaves here in America. There are those who are actual slaves in other countries, and they have far less money. CNN reporters captured video that left them speechless. Migrants being sold as slaves in Libya on the action block. It has been offered up for sale as one group of the big strong boys for farm work, according to the auctioneer, who remains off camera. Only his hand, resting proprietarily on the man's shoulders, is visible in the brief clip. After seeing footage of this slave auction, CNN worked to verify its authenticity and traveled to Libya to investigate further. Carrying concealed cameras into the property outside the capital of Tripoli last month, we witnessed a dozen people go under the hammer of the space of 6 or 7 minutes. Does anyone need a digger? This is a digger, a big strong man. He'll dig, the salesman dressed in camouflage gear says. What am I bid? What am I bid? Buyers raise their hand with the prices raises, 500, 550, 600, 650. Within minutes, it's all over, and the men, utterly resigned to their fate, are being handed over to the new masters. After the auction, we met two of the men who had been sold. They were so traumatized by what they'd been through that they could not speak, and so scared that they were suspicious of everyone they met. Weird, all the captors are black, but we're told that whites are the worst slave owners, right? I've noticed one little word that wasn't mentioned in the whole video: Islam. Okay, so here's the problem. Black on black crime has been going on for a long time. This is how blacks got to America, through the slave trades. Blacks in their territories over there captured other blacks and sold them. Yes, eventually the Dutch were involved, but they weren't the ones who were the captors. It was the black slave lords in Africa that were the captors. We need to really get a grasp on what's going on. We need to understand the reality of the situation we're in, and the reality of the situations that we aren't in. When we have situations in other countries where blacks are still being enslaved, and yet you have a country here in America where blacks are making millions of dollars and claiming that they are slaves, things are out of proportion. I'd say those in America are ungrateful, and maybe they need to understand some of the challenges that are going on in other countries and speak out against those injustices rather than taking a knee for a country that does support them and allows them the opportunities that they have. It's really mixed up and backwards, but what are you going to do in a world where you've got craziness running rampant? All right, here is a graph. I'm not going to go through this graph at all with you. I just wanted to make it available. We can go through it another time. But this is a graph. I believe it comes from 4chan, from Poll, and it is a very intricate graph detailing the swamp, the various different layers of the swamp, the operatives, the designers and funders, the overlords of it. And you could see there's a lot of work that has gone into bringing this together to be able to kind of get a grasp of what's taking place. President Trump is really dealing with a lot of problems. The swamp is big. We can talk about this further. But before we get into this, I wanted you to have the graph so you can look at it. And that way, when it's discussed and when we go over it, that way we all have a little bit more insight into it, because the swamp is deep and it's a big, big, big swamp. All right, that brings us finally to the close. And as always, we want to throw something spiritual in the mix, because spirituality is how we overcome the darkness that is out there. First and foremost, I always love this one. It is the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me to the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely thy goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That is the 23rd Psalm, and this is a prayer that if there's ever any challenges in one's life, this is one to really help to clear up those problems. Recite this as you're walking through any challenging situations, and you'll find the challenges will begin to dissipate. Another one here I wanted to bring up, very important in the aspect of prayer and understanding how we could clear the darkness, is this very powerful prayer. Matthew 6, 9 through 13. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Now, I know we've all heard that one, certainly over and over. That is the Lord's Prayer. Very powerful prayer indeed that helps us to understand that there is a much bigger picture out there, to understand that there is a influence, a support system that is in place to help us through things that we may not have had any other recourse to get through until we're able to look at the spiritual aspects of things. Here's one more. This was the daily thought for today, and it's very simple. The heavens above mirror the earth below. Trust in him, and he will fulfill your trust. It's a very, very, very simple phrase at the end, trust. And really, that's kind of what it all boils down to. Okay? We see all of these issues taking place in life, and our job is to decipher what is going on. Our job is not to become part of a mob mentality and start calling out people as being guilty just because we want to do so. We need to look at a little bit more evidence. We need to be a bit more concerning or disconcerting. We need to sometimes put ourselves in the position of the person being accused and ask ourselves, would we want to be falsely accused? No, nobody does. So we shouldn't be falsely accusing others. Do we want to be falsely judged or judged for things we do? No. So we shouldn't be making judgments. We need to observe. We need to be aware of bad behavior. We need to be aware of the things that are threatening us. But then we also don't want to go on the attack and then start cross that line, because it's very easy to do. Okay? Life's an interesting mix for us. Right now we're dealing with a lot of emotions. Emotions can push the buttons in very dramatic ways. And once those emotional buttons are pushed, we can sometimes go off half-cocked, unclear, moving through the world, making decisions based on emotions and feelings that aren't really a part of the bigger picture. Feelings, emotions, that's what this is. But our feelings and emotions are just that, feelings and emotions. And if we break them down, it's just water. It's just a watery element that hit us that we've absorbed, and we've then are moving forward with the condition that that water brings to us. So let's just put on our armor today, my friends. Let's remember the 23rd Psalm. Let's remember the words of the Lord's Prayer, and let's have the faith and trust we need that there's a bigger picture, that there's a guiding force guiding us through the darkness, that there's a guiding force that is taking our hand as a parent, a mother, a father, and that when we have ultimate trust in God, we find out that all things in life just seem to unfold in a magical way. That's really it. That's really it. So that's the show for today. I will be back tomorrow. FirstContactRadio.com is the place to go where you can find me at Twitter, at First Contact Now. You can also find me at Facebook. If you like the videos, please subscribe to the channel. This is how I do things here, half an hour as much information as possible during that time. Off we go with something positive. Have a great day, my friends. I'll be back tomorrow. Till then, I love you. Keep loving each other. Peace. I'm out of here.